So, yeah, very good morning to everyone who have joined here for today's student development program. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Anand Babu for giving me a wonderful opportunity to connect with all of you during this pandemic. And I also thank Dr. Pr- Princely for organizing such a wonderful program today. And I don't want to take much of time in introducing me because Sir has given me a wonderful introduction. I shall present my screen now. So the topic for today's session is life and literature, and literature a threshold to culture and society. Before I start, I must give you the dictionary definitions, how it actually is. In dictionary, how dictionary defines literature, culture, and society, so that we can have a clear understanding of the interconnection between literature, culture, and society and all. So the dictionary defines literature as a piece of writing that are valued as works of art, especially novels, the plays and poems, in contrast to technical books and newspapers, magazines, etc. So the dictionary defines literature as the written works, especially those considered of superior or lasting artistic merit. In simpler means, we can understand literature as a piece of writing which a slight artistic merit. And the dictionary defines culture as the art and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, or the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. So, in simpler means, we can understand culture as a social behavior or ideas of certain people, a group of people who live in a community, a society. Then the dictionary defines society as the aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community, or an organization or club formed for a particular purpose or activity. So when a group of ideas or when a collection of ideas are performed in a so-called community, we call it as society. So this is how the dictionary defines literature, culture, and society. And we need to know the interconnection or the relationship between literature, culture, and society. And the relationship is very simple. I have given a kind of diagram here, how custom or the culture and society helps the writer to write his writing, and how he produces his writing to the reader, and the connection between life and reader. And I here mean the culture and society as life. Culture, society is a combined whole that makes the life a sensible aspect. Literature, society, and culture, it appears to be a bit simple. If you start looking at this closely, if you start thinking about what could be discussed as a kind of a relationship between life and literature, then a large number of windows open up. What does life mean in the context of literature, or what does literature mean in the context of life? If we ask those questions, we can say that there is a variety of lives. There are so many perspectives for life. There is human life, the social life, political life, life in education, life in economics, life of employees and employers, the ideological life, religious life, cultural life, and life in villages, life in cities, and life of the students, life of particularly the girl students. And there are so many, right? There are so many. So this is what life is. Life is a combination of culture and society. All of us and all the time confront this life. And what am I to do with this life that I am confronted by? It is a big question. Then what is literature then? Literature is a composition in words of a phenomena that happens in the mind of the author. The mind starts taking pictures of the life that the individual writer faces, and pictures are reconstructed by the writer. Some scripts are written that scripts are supposed to tell the readers who read it that this is what is happening in life. So there are certain writers who give more to aesthetics, more to pleasure or the pleasure aspect than the moral aspect in their writing. So therefore, they would like to, they would like to create a sound effect. They would like to describe the art form in life. They would like to paint through words the situations, and they would like to pleasure out of it. They would like to take pleasure out of it actually. So literature has to choose as to what it has to show. The writer is more or less is fully free to show what he wants to show, what he wants to share with the readers. So this is what literature is. Literature is a presentation of life. So we have many forms of literature, as we had many forms of life that I told you a few minutes before. We have literature in forms of books. We have literature in forms of oral communication. We have literature in forms of movies, dramas, and in forms of painting. So all these literature basically make the reader relaxed. It makes the reader to imagine, and through imagination one gets away from the world, from his sufferings, from his present condition and situation, from his culture, from his society. He is traveling through his imagination. So for this reason, some people consider to take literature lightly. That is not right. If this is what literature, if it is going to be, our literature is just to relax and just to entertain, then serious people in life, they will not take it seriously. Is that true? That literature should not be taken seriously? In fact, I shall tell you an example. Some months ago, I happened to watch an interview of Dr. Anand Sharma, a retired professor of English from Delhi University. He was telling that when he started teaching literature in the early 60s, the greatness in other departments, the professors in other departments would not think of talking seriously, or would not think of taking him seriously with them. They would think that the professor will simply tell stories and speak dramas and nothing very useful. Is that true? Is that right? There is a kind of significance and useful relationship between literature and life. This is the aspect I thought that I should consider for today's session, and one should try to find out the relevance of life to literature, and the relevance of society to literature, the relevance of culture to literature. Literature is not just an instrumental in something. Literature lives, it carries something that is very useful for life. And without literature, where would you be? If you ask that question, there is no answer. And it is not merely a work for relaxation, it is also for facing up of reality and living a life of imagination. And there arises two questions if we say that. Can we have a life of imagination, or can we have a life of reality? Well, I don't, or no one can separate the two. Imagination also is life. It is also reality. Literature means a lot to life. It is the reflection of life actually. When you see a reflection, a picture of life, then you start considering certain aspects of life which will make you grasp the reality better than before. That is theoretically very sound, and we should consider the relationship in such a manner that we come to finally know the importance of literature, or of life that literature captures. You just see, you just follow me. When words are used in literature, when the language is used in literature, it is the same language, same words that we use in life. So when the words are transferred from the life to literature, then life starts entering the literature, and life starts playing in literature, playing a role in literature. Sometimes we also use the words or language or phrases used in literary arts, in movies, in our daily life. For example, you just think of the memes that we receive and forward in our social networks like WhatsApp and Facebook. Imagine if there is no Vadivelu in Tamil cinema, how do you compose memes? So without his expressions in Tamil cinema, or without his expressions or dialogues in cinemas, um, the role of meme would come so low, so down. So the comic dialogues are used in our daily life to express our emotions in our daily life. So literature and life are interconnected, more or less directly, and sometimes more or less organically. So literature and life could not be separated. That is, this is what you should understand now. Literature and life cannot be separated. In ancient times, before Christ, I mean, in the time BC, there were illiterate poets. There are a large number of illiterate poets, and they never went to schools, and they never did any formal education. They didn't have any formal training in writing, and these people imbibed the taste for literature throughout the oral practice. People sang songs, those songs had words, and these illiterate poets imbibed the meters and started composing songs. So imagine human beings composed literature in the condition that were given at that time, and they created literature according to the time they lived, or according to the situation they have seen or they have faced. So literature became a means of connecting people with one another. In those times, there were bonds between people. It was cultural bonds. So literature connected the cultural bonds between people, and literature has performed this very important role of getting the society together and give them a sense of bonding. Slowly, those illiterate poets started writing hymns, which I mean the praising songs on God. They sang songs on God, the great personalities, great men. The hymns slowly started to become epics then. You must be aware of the writers, the epic writers of the Greek, like Homer, Sophocles, Euripides, or sometimes Dante in Latin. And there were so many epic writers. An entire period is covered with an epic, and the tales which were spoken orally, which were sang orally in those days, the tales told orally took forms of epics. So epic is meant for presenting on stage, but the one form of literature get into another art form like drama and theatres. So people started gathering into one place, and they gathered in a place where the performance took place before the start of the performance, and they spend their time in community, in group. They discuss their problems, and they have seen their problems on stage. They have received a solution for their problems from the dramas or from the epics that was performed on stage. So it became a social affair. Literature started becoming a social affair. And if we read those ancient literatures, we would understand that this was the language used, or this was the culture followed, or this was how the society was. So literature gives us an understanding of our old times. Literature gives us a clear picture of our ancestors. It presents the life of our ancestors. So literary works, literature started working as a means of carrier of time, and it brings us to the past time. It brings us to the past time and makes us live with the people who lived in those times. So are we speaking about literature or life? The answer is we are discussing both, because literature simply presents life. See, when Wordsworth started Romanticism movement against Neoclassical movement, he said, his primary aim was to take subjects for poetry from common men's lives, so that the poetry can appeal to everyone and no more being elite. It doesn't mean that before Wordsworth the subjects of literature were not taken from men. Even during the Neoclassical time, or even before or in the classical time, literature presented life. Maybe the subjects for literature were taken from not ordinary men, but people like rich men or kings and queens, or sometimes gods and goddesses created by men. So that could be happened. But anyway, from the beginning of literature is presenting life. Literature is giving us a clear picture of life. The past times we can understand through literature. So I have given two quotes from two great men. You just read those quotes. you can have an understanding how they picturize the literature, or how they picturize the men. No writer can escape from the influence of his age. It's Goethe's statement. A writer cannot escape from his age. You just imagine, this is a period of a pandemic. We are suffering from a global pandemic. If a writer needs to write a work, for example a novel, at this time, there is no other go for the writer except adding some space for the global pandemic. So after some centuries, after some decades, when a reader reads this work, he would come to know how the pandemic was at this time. So a writer cannot escape from the influence of his age, and every man is the citizen of his age as well as of his country. And Renan says one belongs to one country even if he wants to react against the race and the century. So the writer should belong to his century and his race. Even if he wants to react against his century and race, the conditions that he lived, he has to belong to it. There is no other go for him. So this diagram clearly shows how life works for literature. Life, that is culture and society combined, gives a space to the writer, or gives an opportunity to the writer, and the writer observes the life, understands the life, and presents the life in his writing. That writing is given to the reader. The reader reads the writing and understands what his life was, and he gives space to the culture, and he lives according to the writing, and he changes his pattern of living according to the writing. So that creates again a culture and society. It is a cycling process. I hope you can understand life, writer, writing, and reader. So this is what the connection between culture, society, and literature. It is all intertwined. You cannot separate one from the other. And I would like to give a few remarks on the writers or philosophers who contributed to literature with their culture and society, or how they represented the culture and society. And it is not fair if I do not start with Plato and Aristotle, because Plato and Aristotle are the pioneering people in ancient Greek literature as well as the Western philosophy. We call Plato as the founding father of Western philosophy. You would have studied about Plato and Plato's theory of ideas and all, but I would like to here make a small note how Plato and Aristotle contributed to literature even though they have not created a direct literary works. Plato's most important book is his Republic. In Republic, he views art is twice removed from reality. To Plato, ideas are ultimate reality, and you know all those things, and things are copies of ideas, and as art represents the things, it is copy of copy, that is things. So it is twice removed from reality, and he wants art to serve as philosophy. And to Plato, art should take the role of philosophy, and it should function. The function of art to Plato is to give moral. So to him, art should give its readers moral and good values. And he also says that art is a product of inspiration, and an artist is inspired of a thing, an object, and creates his art. And that art should carry moral. This is what Plato's idea. So according to this idea, the later in the later centuries, even in English, we have divided literature into two, right? Art for art's sake and art for life's sake. And this two divisions of art for art's sake and art for life's sake, started from Plato and Aristotle. And Plato's consideration was art for life's sake. Art should give some values to life. Art should give moral to life. But Aristotle, the student of Plato, had a different view. Though he is a student of Plato, he was from the school of Plato, had a different view on art. He says art is a product of imitation, and so it should bring pleasure to the reader. In the work of in his work Poetics, Aristotle lays down the rules for epics and tragedy. You must be aware of it, and he makes distinction for art. Even now, a good drama is identified with this three unities: the unity of time, place, and action. So to Aristotle, art should give pleasure, and to Plato, art should give moral. You should understand the conditions, the time they lived, Plato and Aristotle. In 5th century BC, Plato spent half of his lifetime with wars. When Plato has started his academy in Athens, it was not a good condition to start. So what Plato thought was, people need moral in order to come out of their war attitudes and the fighting attitudes. They need moral. Because of the lack of moral, they are involving in those kind of negative issues and things. So Plato wanted people to receive moral from art, like philosophy. But Aristotle spent most of his time with peace. There was no war. So what Aristotle wanted from art is the pleasure, because as people have enough moral in their mind, they are not involving in any negative activities, any immoral activities. So what now they need is pleasure. This is what the condition that they live, Plato and Aristotle. And there are great writers like Homer, as I mentioned earlier, Homer, Sophocles, Euripides, and who showed the Greek culture and Greek society. And still from these two great masters of Western philosophy, art get its functions. And I don't have time to elaborate all writers of Greek detailedly, but still I have chosen some of the writers, particularly Plato and Aristotle, who really contributed their time in literature and their society as well. So in British literature, let me introduce the most important playwright of Elizabethan time, Thomas Nash. He was also a poet and satirist. He was one of the university wits. I'm sorry, I cannot talk about all British writers. Many British writers have contributed a lot to British writing as well as the whole English literature. But why I have chosen Thomas Nash is, we are in a pandemic. In his work Summer's Last Will and Testament, it was a play by Thomas Nash, and in that play he has written a sonnet on a litany in time of plague, to mention the Black Death, the condition of that time. You just read the poetry. You just read the lines of Thomas Nash. I have given the half of the sonnet here. Rich men trust not in wealth. Gold cannot buy you health. Physic himself must fail. All things to end are made. The plague full swift goes by. I am sick, I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. We just read the lines. Thomas Nash, how he described the pandemic of his time. Anybody who reads the poem anybody who reads the poem even after many centuries can get the same emotion and understand the pathetic condition of the people at that time. So this is what a writer really contributes to literature for his society. And even Thomas Nash made countryside visits to remove himself from London in fear of the plague. So we can, by reading these lines, we can understand the fear of Thomas Nash, the fear of people who lived during the pandemic. And there were great writers like Spencer during Elizabethan time, who was patronized by Queen Elizabeth I, and playwrights like Marlowe, Shakespeare, who projected the Elizabethan society completely, who wrote plays in favor of the crown. And even we study in Marlowe's biography that he was a spy to Queen Elizabeth I, and that's why he got involved in conspiracy, and he was murdered. And you think about the writers like John Bunyan, who made us very important work in literature, The Pilgrim's Progress, and John Milton, these two were the Puritan writers, and who just satirized the society that they lived, and how suppressed the Puritans were during Queen Elizabeth I's time, and even they were not permitted to publish their writing. and this was all presented in their works. And think of Wordsworth when during the Romantic movement. When we read Wordsworth writing, we call Wordsworth as a nature poet, and he actually described, he actually glorified the beauty of England, the beauty of countryside in England in his poetry. Whenever we read poetry, Wordsworth is bringing us to England of his time and makes us to enjoy the beauty of nature. Um, uh, the writers like Charles Dickens during the Victorian time. I must tell something about the Victorian time. The Victorian literature is a very important thing, a phenomena in English literature, because the Victorian time had two phases, one with the good side and one with the worst side. Of course, the industrial revolution started in Victoria's time. Many industries were started. People started working in industries, but in the other way, even many schools were started, many universities were started during Queen Victoria's time. People started becoming literate. People started reading. Libraries were established. People were given books to read. Many books were reprinted, and many books were translated into English. English books were translated to many other European languages. Travels happened. It was a second renaissance like. But the other side of Victorian era is poverty. People started living in poverty. People started starving, and the unemployment. People lost their natural job, and they were forced to work in industries. But it gave them an opportunity to understand the condition. When you read the Victorian literature, you must be aware of the spasmodic poets who lived during Victorian era, including Alexander Smith, the great poet, and P.J. Bailey. And these poets, they exposed how the low class people in Victorian society suffered. Even Matthew Arnold had written a poetry called Empedocles on Etna, where a character suffers from his birth till his death, and so he was suffering. He was having only suffering throughout his life, and so he jumps into a volcano called Etna and commits suicide. This was the content of the poet Empedocles on Etna by Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold wanted to travel in between art for art's sake and art for life's sake, but still he was not able to leave the problems faced by the people, his own people. So all those things are mentioned in the Victorian literature. So literature contributes to the society and culture, as well as it records the culture and society, and nothing in an age can escape from literature. This is what I would like to show. And in American literature, this is again another great phase, the American literature. We have great writers, wonderful writers in America, who started the pioneering effect, like Edgar Allan Poe with his philosophical thing, and poet like Walt Whitman, the Ernest Hemingway, who just picturized the working class people, working class life, how they suffered in American society, and dramatists like Tennessee Williams, who exposed or who showed us the middle class life, how middle class people live between the line of being good and being worse. And he showed us the great thing with, even if you are aware of the Glass Menagerie, where we can understand the exact middle class life of an American community. And poet like Robert Frost, who showed the nature of America. Then a poet like Walt Whitman earlier. If you have if you have read the poem Passage to India, you can understand the biological or the sociological background of America completely. He would have described it in a very picturesque way. And this person, Nathaniel Hawthorne, has a great impact. He has created a great impact in American society with his writing. This particular work, the Scarlet Letter, is very important work of Nathaniel Hawthorne. And actually, Nathaniel Hawthorne represented the Puritan American society. You just think of it, when a new colony is established in a country like America, in a continent like America, people started coming from various places of Europe. And if any place which has a floating population, or which has a floating tendency, there cannot be a good culture followed. There cannot be a good discipline followed in society. So that was the condition of the beginning American thing. So he represented the Puritan American society, where the Puritan, when they settled their colonies, they wanted to create a good society with disciplined and the kind of a legalized society. So Nathaniel Hawthorne represented that, and he expressed the sin, guilt, and legalism and repentance are those kind of themes he has used. And he was a novelist and short story writer. His works have been labeled as dark romanticism, dominated as they are by cautionary tales that suggest the guilt, sin, and evil are the most inherent qualities of humankind. His novels, Nathaniel Hawthorne's novels, short stories, were set in a past New England, that is Puritan society, that are versions of historical fiction used as a vehicle to express themes of ancestral sin, guilt, in other words, the Puritan thinking. He is best known for his novels, and particularly his most famous, The Scarlet Letter, which you can see in the screen, which was a romance in a historical setting in Boston in 17th century, which was a Puritan place. It is a story of an unfortunate lady, Hester Prynne, who gives birth to a child as a result of an affair with a preacher and struggles to create a new life of repentance. The novel explores the theme of sin, guilt, and legalism. And the great writer D.S. Lawrence mentioned that there could be no perfect work of American imagination. So that is how the glory of the work is. And Hawthorne's greatness is due partly to his moral insight. He was concerned with sin and guilt, and the claims of law and conscience. And he is uncompromising in his presentation of things like honesty in life, suffering, and conflict, but also the redeeming power of love. He is also admired for his mastery of allegory and symbolism. He was a major influence in the artistic development of many writers, including Henry James, William Faulkner. Those writers were even called as the members from Hawthorne School. Though the writings of Hawthorne, the part of America, especially the Puritan era, he was a person who was carrying the American society, the Puritan thinking in American society, to the next generation. The social and psychological conditions and the dark side of past America was exposed in Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing. So in simpler means, Hawthorne just represented the old America. If you want to know the condition of old America, you must go with Nathaniel Hawthorne and Harriet Stowe. If you read Harriet Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, it was a wonderful play which describes the condition of slaves in America. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, there was no such thing as the slavery, which was the main thing in America before Abraham Lincoln's existence. But still, Hawthorne wanted to purify his society. Hawthorne wanted to serve the legal aspects to the people. He wanted to imbibe the legal aspects in people's mind. Then we must study the Russian literature, which is again a very important literature and the Russian literature plays an important role in world literature. We all aware that where the communist thinking flourished to the remaining parts, it is where from Russia, right? Then historically, Russian authors have been prominent commentators on society and politics. Still, that tradition continues today. And Anton Chekhov, which you can see on screen, Anton Chekhov is one of the most important writers, and Anton Chekhov, the most frequently produced playwright after Shakespeare, played a vital role, pivotal role in the Russian society. By profession, he was a medical doctor, and he treated thousands of political and criminal prisoners over a course of 3 months in Sakhalin Island when he began his career as a doctor. And shocked by what he saw, he wrote a book titled The Island of Sakhalin. It was a documentation of his experience in that island. So the focus on the internal struggle for freedom was reflected in Anton Chekhov's artistic world. And Chekhov felt that inner freedom was more important than political freedom. There is a critic and biographer, Malo Babel, and he stated that Russian society influenced Anton Chekhov with its culture, and Chekhov influenced Russian society not only by his works but also simply by his very existence. And this is how he remarks on Anton Chekhov. The two writings which you can see on screen, The Seagull and The Cherry Orchard, these two plays are very important plays of Anton Chekhov. The idea of Russian Marxism and the Russian communism were expressed in his The Seagull, the play. And the application of Marxism in Russia and the consequences of communism were explored in The Cherry Orchard. So these are very important works of Anton Chekhov, which completely expressed how Russian community was, or how Russian society was, how the behavior of people was, how they suffered of following communism, or how the Russian Marxism and communism was creating an influence or creating a kind of impact on Russian society. The oppression of Russian Empire on its citizens and the socialist reaction to its tyranny were made in this non-fiction compilation of letters, which is entitled as Letters of Anton Chekhov to his family and friends. I want all the literature students and literarians to read this book, Letters of Anton Chekhov to his family and friends, from where we can understand the complete setting of Russia, the complete condition of Russia during Anton Chekhov's time. And there were so many great writers. Even the new criticism of I.A. Richards, it started with Russian formalism. And there were so many linguists and there were so many literary critics and who created great impact on literature. Even the Moscow Linguistic Circle or the Prague Linguistic Circle, the Upajas, all those group of people and who wanted to think or who wanted to concentrate more on the forms of poetry or forms of writing were all started from Russian literature. And I'm sorry I cannot go with all important writers of Russia, but Anton Chekhov is very important one in Russian literature. Then we come back, we must see something on Indian literature because Indian writing in English is one of the greatest contributors to English literature. And when we study Indian writing in English, which is one of those voices in which India speaks of our culture and modernization of values and systems. And actually, after the British had taken the political power in India, the English came in India and brought a number of translations. And English classics were soon translated into many Indian local languages. Sarojini Naidu, who was called as a gifted poetess, the Nightingale of India, achieved success in handling Indian imagery and Indian expression of Indian personality in her poetry. Tagore, again a greatest poet, is a great phenomenon in the Indian literary renaissance. He combines in himself as a poet, philosopher, and a patriot. He was the only Nobel laureate from Indian literature. With the publications of Mulk Raj Anand's Untouchable and Coolie, I think you would have read those novels in your UG or PG degrees. With the publication of those two novels of Mulk Raj Anand and Raja of Skandapura, the Indian legacy in literature raised worldwide as testimonials. And the Indian myths are used in the novels and works of Mulk Raj Anand, Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan they have all represented myths with their with the maximum literary possibilities. Because India is a land, or India is a cultural unit. Every place in India has a local legends, and every temple has a story behind it. And only in India, art and religion go in a coherent way, and art cannot be separate from religion. And nowhere in world we can see, only in India art and religion go in the same path. It cannot be separated from one another. Our temples are mixtures of art, culture, and religion. And Indian culture, the mode of life of people, their thought process, and the outlook on life, the social structures, values, and customs, their needs, aims, aspirations, and the national commitment. These kind of themes are best expressed in the works of these writers. And there are so many writers in India who contribute to English literature particularly, or generally to literature. But since we don't have much time, I cannot go with all writers. But these are the important writers who expressed India in a better way. The Khushwant Singh is, you would have read the stories of Khushwant Singh, particularly the Mark of Vishnu, like where he condemned or satirized the superstitious beliefs followed in India. Even that is a kind of expression, that is a kind of bringing to the next generation. These writers have transferred, or these writers have given a kind of promotion to Indian literature. They have created a space in the literary world for India. And these writers best expressed or showed Indian culture and Indian life in their works. And I cannot start with Indian writing just with those writers. I must come to Tamil. We should also know something about the Tamil writers who showed the Tamil culture and Tamil society and Tamil people among, or who introduced our sense of living, our way of living, our way of following cultures to the world. The two important writers I would like to suggest you is Kalki Krishnamurthy and Jayakantan. You would have read Kalki's Ponniyin Selvan or Parthiban Kanavu, like the novels like those. And as we all know that Tamil literature has a rich and long tradition spanning more than 2000 years, and still we are searching for our beginning. The history of Tamil literature follows the history of Tamil Nadu, closely following the social, political, and cultural trends of various periods. The early Sangam literature, dated before 300 BC, contained anthologies of various poets dealing with many aspects of life. And our Tamil epic writers showed, and they have actually paved ways for other literary writings. If I try to brief the history and legacy of Tamil literature, in this session it will be like fetching a drop of water from the ocean. We can speak a lot about Thiruvalluvar, Bharadiyar. We can talk a lot about Kambar, fine poets like the greatest epic writers in Tamil. I would like to talk about these two legends of recent times, Kalki and Jayakantan, who showed us the reality of our times very clearly. And we must understand the reality of our times first, and then we can have a better understanding of the past times. And Kalki's Ponniyin Selvan, which is a historical novel in 5 volumes that tells the story of the early days of Rajaraja Cholan. It is widely considered by many to be the greatest novel ever written in Tamil. Even today, the novel has a cult following and fan base among people of all generations. He has shown or picturized Tamil Nadu and the natural wealth of Tamil Nadu, the portraying culture of Tamil Nadu in his novel Ponniyin Selvan. So, if you happen to read the novel, you just follow these statements. In the first chapter of Ponniyin Selvan, which is titled as Puduvellam, that he has picturized the beauty of the greatness of Veera Narayana Eri, which is now called as Veeranam Lake, from where the complete water supply for Chennai and Thiruvallur is taken. So when we read the passage, passages describing the Veeranarayana Eri, tears will automatically flow when we imagine the happy living of our ancestors. And that lake was built by Prince Rajajitan, who was the son of Parandaga Solan, and in order to save the excess water from the river Kaveri. Even now it looks like an ocean. Imagine in the present time we hardly have the water flow in Kaveri, but in those times they have built a lake, a grand lake, just to save the excess water from Kaveri. So if we need to know the living, the way of living, or the life of our people in some hundred or a few hundred years before, we must read novels like this. Only then we can understand how our people lived and how we have transformed our living to a different type of thing, like how we became slaves to modernization. So then the other writer, Jayakanthan, had set a trend in Tamil minds in his time with this different style of writing novels, and his works inspired youth of his time, not only youth but many age groups. He is known for his radical and striking stories. I would like to mention one of his stories, the Agni Pravesam, which has created a great impact among traditional writers and readers. That was a new way of writing. That was a new way of portraying the womanhood. Since you people all are women, you please try to read Agni Pravesam of Jayakanthan. Only then you can understand how women were suppressed a few years before, how women were treated a few years before, how the women were forbidden to walk in society, how women were suppressed with our own so-called the great people like. And he revealed an amazing familiarity with the inner landscapes of individual in varied sections of society. The middle class society was portrayed, the troubles of working class women particularly. So so all these things are deeply picturized in the works of Jayakanthan. So if you want to know how our ancestors lived some centuries ago, we must go with Kalki Krishnamurti. And if we want to know how we people have changed from our traditional beliefs to the modern beliefs, we must go with Jayakanthan. So writers like these two have created a great impact on literature as well as the community. I have given a quote here of Ralph Waldo Emerson. In the work of a writer of genius, we rediscover our neglected thoughts. Actually, literature has performed this a very important role of producing or bringing the life of the great time to the present time. Actually, literature is the greatest saver of time. It is the greatest time saver because it gives us access to a range of emotions and events, and it takes us years, decades, and makes us experience it directly. And it is bringing us to the past life of our ancestors, and it makes us to live with them. It makes us to have practice with them, and it is the greatest reality simulator. Literature is. It is a machine like it puts us to infinitely more situations that we can ever directly witness. It gives the keys of palaces. It opens the gates of great monarchs, and it makes us to live with them and stay with them and understand how they lived. And it introduces the fascinating people of all times, and it takes us to cross the continents in centuries. It makes us to travel through the world with no cost and makes us a world citizen. And so that is what the greatness of literature is. So literature plays a basic magic of showing us how things look like from someone else's perspective. and it allows us to consider the consequences of our actions on others, and it shows us examples of kindly, generous, and sympathetic people. Um, so we can experience anything in literature. The unfulfilled desires of us can be experienced. The interested actions of us, you can enjoy the light on a winter morning if you cannot see directly through literature, and through literature we can enjoy the anxiety in a gathering, the sensation of the first kiss we can enjoy, the envy we can see, the longing experience in journey we can see. So everything can be experienced in literature. And writers usually they what they do is they open our hearts and minds, and they give us a map to our own selves, and they give us the maps to our own selves to understand us, so that we can travel more lively. And it is again I would like to quote the Emerson's quote: in the work of a great genius, we rediscover our own neglected thoughts. We find our own in the collective thoughts. So every day the media takes us to the stories of failure. If you see, even if you turn to the news channels, all the news channels say the same news. Today we have 2000 plus COVID-19 cases, or 3000 COVID-19 cases. So many people have died. Fine. So industries have been closed. Institutions have been closed. There is no workforce. So every day the media takes us to the stories of failure. Interestingly, a lot of literature is also about failures. But the difference between the media and literature is, through literature we understand or know the strategies to overcome the failure. It gives us a solution to the problems. It gives us a clear picture of understanding of the life that we live. So please don't treat literature as the distractions, or don't treat literature as entertainment, but take it close to you. But it is far more than that, far more than distraction and entertainment. It is really a therapy. In a broad sense, we should learn to treat literature as doctors who treat patients with medicines. So it actually literature prescribes the ailments to our problems, and so literature adds a quality. I mean, literature adds a reality, and it does not simply describe it. The work of literature is not ending with the description. It adds reality to it. It enriches the necessary competencies that daily life requires and provides. In this respect, it irrigates the deserts that our lives have already become. It is a quote by C.S. Lewis. So I would like to end my session. I would like to conclude my session by saying literature is a tool. Literature is a bridge. It is a tool to help us live and die with a little more wisdom and goodness. So thank you for the opportunity.